I am Junior, 35 years old, a construction foreman who built a modest life through calloused hands and honest work. Last month I woke to crackling walls and choking smoke. As flames devoured everything we owned, I felt strangely calm getting Amanda to safety. Standing barefoot on cold asphalt, I texted my family house burning down. We are safe, but lost everything. Their silence hurt more than the fire. What followed taught me that sometimes family is just a word while strangers become your real support. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever felt abandoned by those who should have been there. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in suburban Ohio, where perfectly trimmed lawns and two-car garages created the illusion of perfect families behind every door. My father, Robert, built a successful plumbing supply business from nothing. Something he reminded us of at every family dinner. My mother, Karen, with her country club memberships and charity committee positions, spent more time cultivating social connections than emotional ones with her children. In our family hierarchy, my position was firmly established from childhood. My older brother, Michael, was the golden child, the one with the perfect grades, the athletic scholarships, and eventually the corner office at a prestigious financial firm in the city. 5 years older than me, he set an impossible standard that I was constantly measured against. Why cannot you apply yourself like your brother became the soundtrack of my teenage years, playing on repeat whenever my report cards showed B's and C's instead of the straight, as Michael brought home. Then there was my younger sister Stephanie, 3 years my junior and firmly established as the family princess. With her blonde curls and winning smile, she charmed her way through life while I struggled for any recognition. Ballet recitals, piano concerts, cheerleading competitions. My parents never missed a single one of her events. Meanwhile, my football games often had empty seats where my parents should have been. Your father has an important client dinner, my mother would explain. Or Stephanie has a dance competition this weekend. So, I learned early that my achievements were secondary. My decision to pursue construction after high school instead of college created the first major rift in our family. I still remember the tension around the dinner table when I announced my apprenticeship with a local building contractor. Manual labor. That is what we sent you to private school for. My father scoffed, swirling his whiskey. Michael is already on track to make 6 figures by 30, and you want to swing a hammer. It is honest work, I defended myself. I am good with my hands. I like building things. You are throwing away your potential, my mother added with a sigh that carried the weight of her disappointment. What they never understood was that I found peace in creating something tangible. The satisfaction of standing back at the end of the day and seeing physical progress, something built by my own hands, gave me a sense of accomplishment that no office job could match. By 32, I had worked my way up to foreman, leading crews on residential construction projects. I earned enough to live comfortably, though nowhere near the wealth my brother flaunted, or the lifestyle my parents expected for their children. I met Amanda 2 years ago at a local coffee shop. She worked as a preschool teacher, her patience and kindness evident in the way she handled a spilled coffee without a single harsh word to the flustered barista. I was drawn to her warmth immediately, her genuine smile a stark contrast to the calculated social expressions I grew up around. Our relationship progressed naturally without the pressure or performance my family relationships always carried. With Amanda, I could just be myself, not the disappointing middle child or the less successful son. When I brought her to meet my family 6 months into our relationship, the subtle disapproval was immediately apparent. My mother asked about her career goals with thinly veiled disappointment when Amanda expressed contentment with teaching young children. My father probed about her family background, his interest noticeably waning when she mentioned her father was a mail carrier and her mother a librarian. They seem very nice, Amanda said on the drive home, her diplomatic assessment making me love her even more. They are judgmental and status-obsessed, I replied honestly, but they are family. We moved in together after a year, renting at first, then taking the plunge to buy our first home 6 months ago. It was nothing fancy, a 3-bedroom fixer-upper in an older neighborhood, but it was ours. I spent weekends repairing cabinets, laying new flooring, and painting walls, transforming it room by room into our sanctuary. My family visited exactly once for a housewarming dinner that Amanda spent days preparing. My mother commented on the quaint size of our dining room while my father questioned the investment wisdom of buying in this kind of neighborhood. Michael arrived late and left early, making a point to mention his new vacation property during the brief time he was there. Only Stephanie showed genuine interest, asking for a tour and complimenting the work I had done. But even her warmth cooled when my parents expressed their disapproval. As months passed, the invitations to family gatherings came with increasing guilt trips when my work schedule prevented attendance. Construction deadlines did not care about Sunday brunches or birthday dinners. Each missed event widened the gap between us. The last family dinner I attended before the fire was for my father's 60th birthday. Seated around an extravagant table at his favorite steakhouse, the conversation revolved around Michael's recent promotion and Stephanie's engagement to a surgeon. "And how is the hammer-swinging business?" my father asked me after exhausting his praise for my siblings. "It is going well. We just finished a custom home in Lakewood that the owners love. Still working for that small company. You know I have connections at Davidson Builders. They do real commercial projects, not just houses. I like where I am," I said, feeling Amanda squeeze my hand under the table in support. "Well, when you are ready to move up in the world, let me know," he replied, turning his attention back to Michael. That night, driving home, Amanda asked if I was okay. "They will never see me as successful on my own terms," I told her. "But I have made peace with that. I have you, our home, our life together. That is what matters." Little did I know that in just 3 weeks, even that modest success would be reduced to ashes, and the true nature of my family relationships would be exposed in the harshest possible light. The fire started just after 2 in the morning on a Tuesday in October. Later, the fire marshal would explain it was an electrical fault in the wiring behind our bedroom wall, likely dating back to the original construction of the house in the 1970s. Something we could never have known about when purchasing the home. I remember waking to the sharp, piercing beep of the smoke detector. At first, in my groggy state, I thought it was just the battery dying. Then I smelled it. The acrid, unmistakable scent of burning plastic and wood. "Amanda." I shook her awake. "Something is wrong." She sat up, disoriented. "What is that smell?" I flipped on the bedside lamp, but nothing happened. The power was already out. Using my phone flashlight, I saw thin tendrils of smoke seeping through the wall behind our dresser. "We need to get out. Now." The urgency in my voice must have cut through her confusion because she immediately grabbed her robe and phone. Max, our golden retriever, was already pacing nervously at the bedroom door. I grabbed his leash from the hook, not wanting to risk him running back into the house once outside. The smoke grew thicker as we moved into the hallway. I could feel heat radiating from the walls, hear the ominous crackling of flames spreading inside them. Amanda covered her mouth with her robe sleeve, coughing as we hurried down the stairs. The living room was still clear, but I could see an orange glow coming from the kitchen. We headed straight for the front door, not stopping for anything. No photos, no valuables, no keepsakes. In that moment, nothing mattered except getting out alive. The night air hit us like a blessing as we burst onto the front lawn. Our elderly neighbor Greta was already outside in her nightgown, phone to her ear. I called 911. She called to us. "They are on their way." We joined her on the sidewalk, watching in stunned silence as flames became visible through our kitchen window. The fire spread with terrifying speed, consuming our dining room next, then working its way toward the living room. "I cannot believe how fast it is moving," Amanda whispered, clutching Max's leash in one hand and my arm with the other. Within 10 minutes, the first fire truck arrived, sirens wailing into the quiet neighborhood night. Firefighters jumped into action, unrolling hoses and shouting instructions to each other. More trucks arrived along with police and an ambulance. A firefighter approached us, asking if anyone else was inside the house. When we confirmed, it was just the 3 of us, and we were all out safely. He nodded with relief before joining his colleagues. We stood there barefoot on the cold asphalt, watching our life burn. The windows of our bedroom exploded from the heat, sending glass shards onto the front lawn and allowing flames to reach hungrily into the night sky. The roof began to collapse inward, and with each falling beam, another piece of our security crumbled. Amanda started to cry silently beside me. I put my arm around her shoulders, trying to provide comfort when I felt equally devastated. Everything we owned was inside that house. Our clothes, our furniture, our appliances, the baby photo albums Amanda kept in her bedside drawer, the handmade quilt from my grandmother that we kept folded at the foot of our bed, the kitchen table where we ate dinner together every night. All the small, meaningful objects that made a house our home. As the firefighters battled the blaze, I thought of my family. If there was ever a time I needed their support, it was now. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and opened our family group chat. It was usually used for announcing gatherings or sharing vacation photos, rarely for actual communication of substance. But this was an emergency. I typed, "Our house just burned down. We are safe, but we lost everything. Could use some support." I hit send and watched the message status change to delivered. Now we would wait for their responses, for the comfort of family rallying around us in crisis. A paramedic approached, offering us blankets and a quick health check. She confirmed we had no burns or serious smoke inhalation, but recommended going to the hospital if we developed any respiratory symptoms later. A police officer took our information for the report. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" he asked. I hesitated, looking at my phone. No replies yet from my family. It was the middle of the night, so perhaps they were sleeping. Though my father was notorious for keeping his phone by his bed and checking emails at all hours. "We will get a motel room," I finally answered, not wanting to impose on neighbors and still hoping my family would respond soon with offers of help. The officer gave us information about Red Cross assistance for fire victims and the local emergency shelter if we needed it. I thanked him automatically, still numb with shock. By dawn, the fire was finally under control, though our home was clearly a total loss. The firefighters explained they had managed to prevent it from spreading to neighboring houses, but ours was destroyed. The roof had collapsed entirely, and what walls remained were charred black and structurally unsound. "You cannot go back in the fire," Chief explained gently. "It is not safe. Once our investigation is complete, you can work with your insurance company on salvaging any contents. But honestly, there will not be much left." I nodded, understanding, but still struggling to process the reality of our situation. I checked my phone again. 7:30 in the morning now. Still no response from my family. I refreshed the chat, making sure my message had gone through. Amanda called her parents, who lived in Arizona. They answered immediately, despite the early hour in their time zone, expressing horror at our situation and offering to wire money for a hotel until we figured out next steps. The contrast to my family's silence was striking. We used Amanda's parents' credit card to book a room at a nearby budget motel. The room was basic but clean, with 2 beds, a small bathroom, and a television. Once inside, the adrenaline that had kept us going began to fade, replaced by bone-deep exhaustion and the first real waves of grief. "What do we do now?" Amanda asked, sitting on the edge of the bed in her smoke-scented nightgown. "Call the insurance company," first thing I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Figure out what is covered, what they can help with immediately." I checked my phone again. 8:15 in the morning. Still nothing from my family. I tried to rationalize their silence. Maybe they were all busy. Maybe they had not seen the message yet. Maybe they were coordinating among themselves before responding. But as Amanda and I finally lay down to rest, the silence from my phone felt deafening. I placed it on the bedside table screen, up volume on high, so I would not miss their calls when they finally came. Sleep claimed us both quickly, the exhaustion of trauma pulling us under. But even in sleep, the weight of loss pressed down, and the absence of family support created a hollow ache that followed me into uneasy dreams. I woke with a start around 1 in the afternoon, momentarily confused by the unfamiliar room before the memories of the night before came flooding back. Amanda was still asleep in the other bed, Max curled at her feet. I immediately reached for my phone, expecting to see messages of concern and offers of help from my family. The screen showed notifications from the bank, news alerts, and a text from my boss responding to the message I had sent him about the fire. Nothing from my family. Not a single response in the group chat. No private messages. No missed calls. 11 hours had passed since I sent that desperate message. Surely they had seen it by now. I slipped quietly into the bathroom so I would not wake Amanda, who needed the rest. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My face was drawn with dark circles under my eyes and a layer of stubble on my jaw. My t-shirt still smelled faintly of smoke. After a quick shower that did little to wash away the weight of our situation, I sat on the closed toilet lid and began making calls. First to our insurance company, where I navigated an endless maze of automated options before finally reaching a human being. "I understand this is a difficult time, Mr. Thompson," the insurance representative said after taking down our information. "I do need to make you aware of a potential issue, though. It appears your policy has a stipulation about electrical systems in homes built before 1980. If the fire was caused by original wiring that had not been updated, there might be coverage limitations." My stomach dropped. What does that mean exactly? "We will need to wait for the fire marshal's official report, but there is a possibility that your dwelling coverage might be reduced by up to 60% in this scenario." The implications hit me hard. Our policy was already modest, chosen to keep monthly premiums affordable. A 60% reduction would leave us with barely enough to cover a down payment on a new place, let alone replace everything we had lost. "We will assign an adjuster to your case immediately," the representative continued. "They should contact you within 48 hours to arrange an inspection once the fire department clears the scene." I thanked her automatically and ended the call, my mind racing with new worries. We had about $3,000 in savings, which would not last long between motel costs, replacing immediate necessities, and whatever gap the insurance left. As I exited the bathroom, Amanda was sitting up in bed scrolling through her phone. "Any word from your family?" she asked. I shook my head. "Nothing yet." She frowned but did not push the issue, instead showing me messages from her coworkers at the preschool, all expressing sympathy and offering clothes, toiletries, and home-cooked meals. Her director had already organized a collection for us. I felt a surge of gratitude for these people who were essentially strangers to me, yet showing more care than my own flesh and blood. We spent the next few hours making lists of what we needed to replace immediately, what could wait, and contacting utility companies to cancel services to a house that no longer existed. Through it all, I kept checking my phone, refreshing the family chat, growing increasingly hurt and angry at the silence. Around 4:30 that afternoon, my phone buzzed with a social media notification. Thinking it might finally be my family reaching out through another channel, I quickly opened it. It was a tag from my brother Michael. He had posted a series of photos at a beach house with the caption, "Best family weekend ever. Blessed family first." The images showed my parents Michael and his wife Stephanie and her fiancé all smiling on a deck overlooking the ocean, glasses of champagne raised in a toast. My father at a grill wearing an apron that read King of the BBQ. My mother and Stephanie with their arms around each other on the beach. The timestamp showed the post was made just an hour ago. I stared at the photos in disbelief, the pieces falling into place with nauseating clarity. They were all together. All in one place. All having a wonderful time while Amanda and I stood in the street watching our lives burn to the ground. They had seen my message. They had to have seen it, and they had collectively decided to ignore it. "Junior, what is wrong?" Amanda asked, noticing my expression. I wordlessly handed her my phone. She looked at the photos, then at me, her face reflecting the betrayal I felt. "They are all together at some beach house," I said, my voice strangely calm despite the storm raging inside me. "They have been together since at least yesterday, judging by the other photos in the album." They saw my message and chose to ignore it. "Maybe they did not see it," Amanda suggested gently, always looking for the most charitable explanation. "Maybe they do not have good reception there." "They are posting on social media, Amanda. They have reception." The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. "And look at the timestamps. Several of them have been online since I sent that message." She handed the phone back to me, her expression now matching my anger. "That is inexcusable." I scrolled through the photo album Michael had posted. 27 pictures documenting what appeared to be a family getaway at a luxury rental on the coast. The perfect family enjoying the perfect weekend. Without me, of course. I had not even been invited. In one photo, they were all seated around a large dining table laden with seafood. The caption read, "Family dinner. Missing no one important." The casual cruelty of those words hit me like a physical blow. I tried to hide how much it hurt, but Amanda knew me too well. "Call your mother," she suggested. Maybe there is some explanation. Wanting to believe there could be some reasonable justification, I dialed my mother's number. It went straight to voicemail. "Mom, it is Junior. I do not know if you saw my message, but our house burned down last night. We are okay physically, but we lost everything. We are staying at the Sunset Motel on Elmwood for now. I could really use some support right now. Please call me back." I ended the call and immediately texted Stephanie, who had always been slightly more responsive than the others. "Steph, did you see my message about the fire? We really need help." The message showed as delivered, then read. But no reply came. I put the phone down, a cold realization settling over me. This was not an oversight. This was not bad timing. This was a deliberate choice. My family had seen my cry for help and had collectively decided we were not worth interrupting their beach weekend for. "I cannot believe they would do this," Amanda said, wrapping her arms around me. "I am so sorry, Junior." I leaned into her, embraced, grateful for her steadfast presence, yet acutely aware that she was suffering too. We had both lost everything. And instead of supporting her, I was dealing with my family's betrayal. "Let us get some food," I suggested, pushing down the hurt. "We need to keep our strength up." We walked to a nearby diner, one of the few places within walking distance of the motel. Over greasy burgers and fries, we tried to focus on practical matters. What clothes we needed to buy, how to get copies of important documents, whether my contractor tools stored in the garage might have survived. But the knowledge of my family's indifference cast a shadow over everything. Each time my phone buzzed with a notification, I checked it reflexively, still hoping for some response. Each time it was something else, the bank, a news alert, Amanda's friends checking in. As night fell on our second day of homelessness, I found myself lying awake in the motel bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. Amanda had finally fallen asleep, emotionally exhausted from the day. I picked up my phone one last time, composing a final message to the family chat. "I see you are all enjoying your beach weekend. Thanks for the concern about our house burning down. Good to know where I stand." I typed the words but did not send them. What was the point? The silence had already told me everything I needed to know about my place in the family. I deleted the draft and set the phone aside, turning to watch Amanda sleep, finding comfort in the gentle rise and fall of her chest. We had lost our home and possessions, and I had lost my illusions about my family, but I still had her. In that moment, I made a silent promise that I would rebuild our life with or without my family's help. 3 days after the fire, our situation went from bad to worse. The motel, while not luxurious, had at least provided private space and basic amenities. But at $110 per night, it was quickly draining our limited savings. When the insurance company informed us that our temporary housing allowance was being delayed pending investigation of the wiring issue, we had to make a difficult decision. "The Red Cross said the community shelter has space for us," I told Amanda, as we sat on the motel bed calculating how many more nights we could afford. "It is not ideal, but it would be free while we sort this out." Amanda nodded, practical as always. "We need to make our money last. The shelter makes sense for now." The Lincoln Community Shelter was a converted gymnasium at a local high school set up to house victims of various disasters. Walking in with our few newly purchased belongings in plastic bags, I felt a sense of unreality. How had we gone from homeowners to homeless in just a few days? The shelter coordinator, a kind woman named Beverly, showed us to our assigned space, 2 cots with a small divider for minimal privacy, a shared locker for our belongings, and access to communal bathrooms and showers. Max would have to stay with a volunteer foster family as the shelter could not accommodate pets. "It is temporary," Beverly assured us, seeming to sense our distress. "Most families find more permanent housing within a few weeks." Saying goodbye to Max was another blow. He was confused and anxious, not understanding why we were leaving him with strangers. I knelt beside him, rubbing behind his ears the way he liked. "We will come visit every day, buddy, and we will all be back together soon." That first night in the shelter, lying on a thin cot surrounded by the sounds of 20 other displaced people, I stared at the ceiling and thought about how drastically our lives had changed. Just 4 days ago, we had been in our own home with our own bed, our own bathroom, our own kitchen. Now we had nothing but the clothes a local charity had provided and whatever we could fit in a small locker. Amanda reached across the space between our cots, taking my hand. No words were needed. We both understood the depth of our loss, but also the strength we would need to find in each other. The days fell into a grim routine. I would wake early, use the communal showers before they became crowded, and head out to look for temporary work. My construction company had been understanding about my situation, but could only offer reduced hours while a major project was on hold. It was not enough to rebuild our lives. I found odd jobs where I could, helping an elderly man repair his porch, painting a local restaurant after hours, installing cabinets for a friend of a friend. The work was sporadic but gave me purpose and much-needed income. Amanda had returned to her preschool job, the normalcy of being with the children providing some emotional stability amid our chaos. Her coworkers continued to be incredibly supportive, bringing home cooked meals to the shelter and offering their washing machines for our laundry. Each evening we would visit Max at his foster home, these brief moments with our dog becoming the highlight of our increasingly difficult days. A week after the fire, I was sitting on my cot researching insurance appeals on a borrowed laptop when my phone finally buzzed with a message from my family. 7 days of complete silence. And now a text from Stephanie. Sorry to hear about your house. Things are crazy busy here. Let us know if you need anything. I stared at the message, reading and rereading the casual dismissal of our tragedy. 7 days. 7 days of homelessness, of shelter, living, of scrambling for work and assistance. And this was her response. Things are crazy busy here. As if her social calendar somehow compared to losing everything we owned. Let us know if you need anything. The hollow offer infuriated me even more than the silence had. What did she think we needed? A casserole. A sympathy card. I showed the message to Amanda when she returned from work, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice as I read it aloud. You should reply, she said after a moment. Tell her exactly what we need. She does not really want to know, I argued. Maybe she does. Maybe they all do, but they do not understand the severity of the situation. Be specific, Junior. Tell them we are in a shelter. Reluctantly, I composed a reply. Thanks for checking in. We actually do need help. The insurance is delaying our claim, and we have been staying at a homeless shelter for the past 4 days. We could use assistance with temporary housing costs or replacing basic necessities. Even a place to stay for a few nights would help. I hit send, watching as the message was marked. Read almost immediately. I waited for the typing indicator for some response, but none came. Not that evening. Not the next morning. Another day of silence followed my vulnerable admission of need. That evening, Amanda received a call from her parents. They had scraped together $800 to send us nearly their entire monthly Social Security income. We cannot take that, I protested when she told me. They barely have enough for themselves. They insist, Amanda said, tears in her eyes. They said they will eat beans and rice if they have to, but they will not have us living in a shelter if they can help it. The contrast between her family's sacrifice and my own family's indifference could not have been more stark. Her parents, living on a fixed income in a small Arizona apartment, were willing to give up their own comfort to help us. My family, with their beach houses and champagne toasts, could not even be bothered to respond to a direct request for help. 2 weeks into our shelter stay, I had formed connections with some of the other residents. There was Luis, a middle-aged man whose apartment building had been condemned after a water main break caused structural damage. Maria and her 2 children displaced by a landlord who had illegally evicted them. Elderly Harold, whose fixed income could no longer cover rising rents in the neighborhood he had lived in for 40 years. I began using my construction skills to help around the shelter. Fixing leaky faucets, patching holes in walls, rebuilding broken furniture. The work gave me purpose and helped take my mind off our situation and my family's betrayal. You have a gift, Beverly, the coordinator told me one day as I finished repairing a set of bunk beds. You have taken a terrible situation and found a way to help others through it. Her words stuck with me, planting a seed that would later grow into something unexpected. As we approached our 3rd week at the shelter, Amanda and I were beginning to lose hope of a quick resolution. The insurance company was still investigating the wiring issue with no timeline for a decision. Our savings were depleted, and while we both worked as much as possible, accumulating enough for a security deposit and first month's rent on a new apartment seemed impossible. And still my family remained silent. No more messages, not even the superficial check-in that Stephanie had sent. It was as if we had ceased to exist for them, our tragedy too inconvenient to acknowledge. I had stopped checking social media, tired of seeing their perfectly curated lives continuing without interruption. But Amanda monitored occasionally, reporting that my brother had posted photos of his new boat, my sister had shared details of her wedding dress shopping, and my parents had hosted a dinner party at their home. Life went on for them, untouched by our suffering. And I began to accept that this was the reality of our relationship. I'd always been peripheral to their family unit, included out of obligation rather than genuine care. Now that inclusion had been withdrawn entirely. Yet in the midst of this abandonment, I found unexpected community. The shelter residents looked out for each other, sharing resources and emotional support. Amanda's co-workers continued their generosity. Even strangers hearing our story through local community networks offered assistance. It was a painful lesson in who truly constituted family, a redefining of what that word really meant. Blood ties, I was learning, guaranteed nothing. Actions, not genetics, revealed who would stand by you when everything else was gone. As I lay on my shelter cot each night, I tried to focus on gratitude for these new connections, rather than bitterness toward my biological family. It was not always easy, but it was necessary for my own mental health, and for supporting Amanda through this crisis. And then 23 days after the fire, everything changed again. But not in the way I could have ever anticipated. It was a Tuesday evening when my phone suddenly exploded with notifications. Amanda and I had just returned to the shelter after visiting Max, both of us, tired from long workdays, but finding joy in the simple pleasure of seeing our dog. I pulled out my phone, expecting messages from potential odd jobs or updates from the insurance company. Instead, I found my screen filled with missed calls. 92 of them accumulated over just a few hours. From my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, cycling through in relentless succession. "What the hell?" I muttered, showing Amanda the screen. "Did something happen?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. Before I could respond, the phone began ringing again. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then declined the call, not ready to speak to her after weeks of silence. Almost immediately, voicemails began downloading. I put the first one on speaker so Amanda could hear. "Junior, this is your mother. Call me immediately. It is urgent." No mention of our situation. No acknowledgement of our previous attempts to reach them. Just a demand for immediate attention. The second voicemail from my father: "Son, we have a family emergency. Call as soon as you get this." My brother's message was similar. "Bro, where are you? Mom and Dad are trying to reach you. Call them ASAP. And Stephanie Jr., please call Mom. It is really important." Each message carried increasing urgency, but gave no details about the nature of the emergency. And tellingly, not one mentioned the fire or our circumstances. As I was listening to the messages, a text came through from my mother. "Junior, we need you immediately. It is just $5,000. Your father and I are in a terrible situation. Call me back." I stared at the message in disbelief, then showed it to Amanda. $5,000. She read, her voice rising in indignation. "They ignore us for weeks, while we are literally homeless. And now they want money." The audacity was breathtaking. After 23 days of complete silence following our devastating loss, their first real contact was a demand for financial assistance. Not an offer of help, not an expression of concern, but a request to drain the money we did not even have. "Are you going to call them back?" Amanda asked, her tone making it clear what she thought I should do. I sat on my cot, phone in hand, conflicted. These were my parents, the people who had raised me, imperfect as they were. If they were truly in an emergency, "I need to at least find out what is going on," I finally said. "But I am putting it on speaker. I want you to hear everything." Amanda nodded, sitting beside me as I dialed my mother's number. She answered on the first ring. "Junior. Thank goodness. We have been trying to reach you for hours." My mother's voice was breathless with relief. I saw that I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "What is going on?" "Your father and I are in a terrible bind. There is an investment opportunity through his business connections, absolutely guaranteed returns, but the window closes tomorrow. We need $5,000 to secure our position." I blinked, struggling to process what I was hearing. Not a medical emergency. Not a natural disaster. An investment opportunity. "Mom," I said slowly, "our house burned down 3 weeks ago. We have been living in a homeless shelter. I texted all of you for help the night it happened." There was a pause then. "Yes, we saw that. Just terrible what happened to you. But you know how busy things get. We were at the beach house that weekend for Michael's boat christening. Such a lovely time, though. We certainly thought of you." The casual dismissal of our tragedy made my blood boil, but I kept my voice steady. "So you are calling now because you need money. Money that we do not have. Because we lost everything. Junior, do not be dramatic. Your father and I would not ask if it was not important. It is just $5,000. Your insurance must have paid out by now." Amanda's hand tightened around mine, her expression a mixture of shock and anger. "Our insurance has not paid anything," I explained, wondering how she could be so oblivious. "They are still investigating. We literally have nothing, Mom. We are sleeping on cots in a gymnasium." "Well, that sounds very temporary," my mother replied dismissively. "Surely you have some savings. This investment is time-sensitive, Junior. Your father has put his reputation on the line with his business associates." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. The disconnect between her reality and ours was so vast it seemed we were speaking different languages. "How are Michael and Stephanie doing?" I asked, changing tack. "Have you asked them for the money?" "Of course we have," she said, sounding affronted. "Michael has all his money tied up in the boat and his vacation property right now. And Stephanie is saving for her wedding. You know how expensive those are." So I was the last resort, the afterthought. Only contacted when all preferred options had been exhausted. "I cannot help you, Mom," I said finally. "I do not have $5,000. I do not have $500. What I have is a shelter cot, and whatever I can earn from day labor while our insurance claim is processed." "Junior, this is family," she replied, her voice taking on the guilt-inducing tone I remembered from childhood. Family helps each other. The irony was so thick I could barely respond. "Yes, Mom. Family does help each other. When their house burns down. When they lose everything. When they are living in a shelter." There was a long pause before she spoke again. "I see you are determined to be difficult about this. Your father will be very disappointed. I have to go, Mom." I could feel my composure slipping, and I did not want to say something I would regret. "Think about it, Junior. Call us back when you have decided to help your family." I ended the call and set the phone down carefully as if it might explode. Amanda and I sat in silence for a long moment. "I cannot believe them," she finally whispered. "I just cannot believe anyone could be that selfish." I leaned forward, putting my head in my hands. The hurt was so profound it felt physical, a crushing weight on my chest. Not just the rejection of the past weeks, but the realization that in my parents' eyes, I existed only as a resource to be tapped when convenient. "The worst part," I said after a while, "is that 3 weeks ago I probably would have given them the money if I had it. I would have believed that it would somehow make them see me differently, make them value me." Amanda put her arm around my shoulders. "You deserve so much better than that, Junior." That night I lay awake on my shelter cot, replaying the conversation and every interaction with my family over recent years. A pattern emerged, one I had been too eager for approval to see clearly before. Every call, every invitation, every inclusion had come with an expectation attached. Attendance at family functions, in exchange for the appearance of belonging. Acknowledgement of their achievements, in exchange for fleeting attention to mine. A transactional relationship disguised as family love. The next morning my phone showed 10 more missed calls from my parents. I ignored them all, needing time to process my feelings and decide how to move forward. "What are you going to do?" Amanda asked over our simple breakfast in the shelter cafeteria. I think I need to talk to them in person, I said, surprising myself with the decision. Not about the money, but about everything. I need to look them in the eye when I say what needs to be said. She nodded, understanding as always. Do you want me to come with you? No, I replied after considering it. This is something I need to do myself, but thank you for offering. I sent a brief text to my mother. I will come by tomorrow at noon to talk. I do not have the money you asked for. Her reply came quickly. We will expect you then. Reconsider the financial help, Junior. It is important to us. Even now, no acknowledgement of our situation, no offer of assistance with our crisis. Just the continued expectation that their needs superseded ours. I spent that evening planning what I would say, how I would maintain my composure, while finally speaking my truth to the family that had never truly seen me. It would be difficult but necessary for me to move forward with or without them in my life. The next day, I borrowed Beverly's car to drive to my parents' home in the affluent suburb where I had grown up. The 30-minute drive gave me time to rehearse what I wanted to say, though my thoughts kept circling back to the absurdity of the situation. I was driving from a homeless shelter to a 5,000-square-foot house to explain to my family why I could not give them money. My parents' neighborhood looked exactly as I remembered perfectly. Manicured lawns, luxury cars in driveways, an air of comfortable prosperity that now felt jarringly foreign after weeks in the shelter. I parked in their circular driveway, noting that both my brothers' and sisters' cars were already there. They had assembled the entire family, likely hoping the pressure would make me more compliant. I took a deep breath before ringing the doorbell, centering myself in the knowledge that I was doing what was right not just for Amanda and me, but for my own self-respect. My mother opened the door, her carefully maintained appearance, betraying no sign of the terrible situation she had described on the phone. Her expression was a practiced blend of warmth and subtle disappointment, one I had seen countless times growing up. Junior, come in. Everyone is waiting in the living room. I followed her through the marble-floored entrance hall into the formal living room, where my father, Michael, and Stephanie were arranged on expensive furniture like a tableau of family solidarity. Their faces showed varying degrees of expectation and judgment. The contrast between this setting and the shelter cots Amanda and I had slept on last night was so stark it felt almost surreal. Son, my father began without preamble. Have you reconsidered our request? The investment opportunity closes at 5 today. No greeting, no questions about our welfare, no acknowledgement of our loss. Just straight to the point, the money. I remained standing, suddenly certain that I did not want to settle into this space as if everything were normal. Before we discussed that, I said calmly, I would like to talk about the fire and why none of you responded when I reached out for help. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. My mother glanced at my father, who cleared his throat. We saw your message, of course, he said with a dismissive wave. But we were in the middle of Michael's boat christening weekend. We had guests, commitments. We knew you would sort things out. Sort things out, I repeated slowly. Our house burned to the ground. We lost everything we owned. And you thought we would just sort things out on our own. Stephanie shifted uncomfortably on the sofa. We did talk about calling you, she offered. But Mom thought it might be awkward to call from the beach house when we were all having such a good time. The casual cruelty of the statement hung in the air. They had not wanted to interrupt their celebration to acknowledge our tragedy. So instead, you posted photos tagging family first while ignoring that part of your family was homeless, I asked, looking directly at Michael. He had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. That was insensitive, I admit. But honestly, Junior, you have always been so independent. We figured you had insurance friends to stay with. You have never needed our help before. I never asked for it before, I countered, but I did this time explicitly. And every one of you chose to ignore that request until you needed something from me. My mother sighed dramatically. We are getting sidetracked here. Yes, your situation is unfortunate. But dwelling on who did or did not call, who is not productive. We have an urgent matter to address today. Your urgent matter, I clarified. Not the fact that Amanda and I have been living in a homeless shelter for weeks. My father leaned forward, his business negotiation face firmly in place. Junior, whatever issues you are having with your insurance, we can discuss that later. Right now, we have an opportunity that will not wait. $5,000 to secure a significant return. It is a sound investment. What exactly is this investment, I asked, genuinely curious what could be so important. My father exchanged glances with my mother before answering. A vacation property investment group. Beachfront condos on the Carolina coast. Guaranteed 20% return within 18 months. I stared at him, unable to hide my disbelief. Another vacation property. That is your emergency. While we are sleeping on cots in a shelter gym, you want money for another vacation home. It is an investment, my father corrected sharply. And your current housing situation, while unfortunate, is temporary. This opportunity is not. You should have had better insurance, Michael added helpfully. I made sure my policy covers full replacement value no matter what the cause. The condescension in his tone pushed me closer to the edge of my composure. Thank you for that wisdom in hindsight, Michael. Very helpful. Stephanie, perhaps sensing the growing tension, attempted to soften the atmosphere. We did not want to intrude on your crisis, Junior. Sometimes people need space to deal with things their own way. Space, I repeated incredulously. We did not need space. We needed family. We needed support. We needed someone to give a damn that we had lost everything. There is no need for that language, my mother admonished. We are trying to have a civilized conversation here. I looked around at their faces, these people who shared my blood but suddenly felt like strangers. In that moment, something crystallized within me, a clarity about what truly mattered and what did not. I've been thinking a lot about family lately, I said, my voice steady despite the emotions churning inside me, about what that word really means. Is it just biology, shared DNA, and holiday dinners? Or is it something more? Something built on mutual care and support. My father glanced at his watch impatiently. This philosophical discussion is all very interesting, but we have a deadline to meet. Do you have the money or not? His dismissal of my feelings, so familiar yet now so clearly wrong, solidified the decision I had been moving toward since receiving their call. No, I said simply, I do not have $5,000. I do not even have $500 right now. What I have is a shelter cot, a few donated clothes, and a girlfriend who has stood by me through the worst experience of my life without once complaining or making it about herself. I took a breath, then continued. But even if I did have the money, I would not give it to you. Not after the way you have treated us. Not after showing me so clearly that I only matter to this family when you need something from me. The shock on their faces would have been almost comical in another context. They had been so certain of my compliance, so confident in their ability to manipulate me as they always had. You do not mean that, my mother said, her voice hardening. We are your family. Yes, you are, I agreed, and I will always be your son and brother. But that relationship is going to look very different going forward. For several moments, no one spoke. The weight of my declaration hung in the air between us, challenging decades of established family dynamics. My father was the first to recover his business negotiator mask, slipping back into place. Let us not be hasty here. If you are having financial difficulties, perhaps we can discuss some assistance after this investment matter is settled. The transactional nature of the offer only confirmed what I already knew. In their eyes, relationships were exchanges. Support was currency to be traded for compliance. I did not come here for a negotiation, I said calmly. I came to tell you something important. I moved to the center of the room, wanting them all to hear me clearly. For the past 3 weeks, Amanda and I have been living in the Lincoln Community Shelter. We sleep on cots with 20 other displaced people. We share bathrooms and eat donated food. Our dog is living with strangers because the shelter does not allow pets. My mother shifted uncomfortably. My sister looked at the floor, but I continued. During this time, I have been using my construction skills to help other shelter residents, fixing things, building things, making their difficult situations a little better. And something unexpected happened. I found purpose in that work and using what I know to help people who have nothing. I paused, realizing as I spoke that this was the first time I had articulated this emerging idea, even to myself. I have decided to start a nonprofit organization focused on helping fire victims rebuild their lives. Not just their homes, but the sense of security and community that gets destroyed along with the physical structure. The looks of confusion on their faces made it clear they had not anticipated this direction. I will be using my construction knowledge to coordinate volunteer builders, teach skills to victims themselves, and partner with material suppliers for donations. The goal is to help people rebuild faster and with less financial strain than going through traditional channels alone. That sounds very idealistic, my father said dismissively, but hardly practical as a career move. It is not a career move, I corrected him. It is a calling, something I found because of a tragedy that you all chose to ignore. My brother scoffed. So you are going to throw away years of construction experience to become some kind of charity case yourself. I am going to use those years of experience to help others, I clarified. And I will continue taking paid construction jobs to support myself while building this organization. I turned to face them all directly. I did not come here for your approval or your financial support for this venture. I came to let you know that while I am still your son and brother, our relationship will be changing. I will no longer be available for last-minute financial bailouts or to absorb your disappointment when I do not meet your expectations. My mother's expression hardened. You are being ridiculous, Junior. This fire has clearly affected your judgment. Actually, it has clarified it, I countered. For the first time, I can see our family dynamics without the fog of seeking your approval. I can see that I have value, beyond what I can provide to you. I moved toward the door, having said what I came to say. I will remain in contact, but on new terms. Terms that include mutual respect and genuine care. And if we refuse these new terms, my father challenged. I paused at the doorway. Then you will miss out on knowing the person I am becoming. The choice is yours. Without waiting for a response, I walked out of the house feeling lighter than I had in weeks, despite the heaviness of the confrontation. In letting go of their approval, I had found something more valuable: self-respect. Amanda was waiting anxiously at the shelter when I returned her face, searching mine for signs of how the meeting had gone. How do you feel? She asked, as I sat beside her on the narrow cot. Free, I answered honestly. Like I finally stood up for myself and what matters. I told her about the confrontation and my impromptu announcement of the non-profit idea that had been forming subconsciously for days. I think it is brilliant, she said, squeezing my hand. Using what happened to us to help others in the same situation. You think it could work? I know it could, she said, with conviction. And I want to help. My teaching background could be useful for the family support side of things. Her immediate embrace of the vision touched me deeply, reinforcing that I had found a true partner in her. 2 months later, we had moved out of the shelter and into a small one-bedroom apartment. The insurance company had finally settled our claim, providing enough for a modest fresh start, though nowhere near full replacement of what we had lost. Junior's Phoenix Project, as we named the non-profit, had begun taking shape. I had connected with local contractors, material suppliers, and community organizations. A small grant from a local foundation provided initial funding, and a newspaper article about our story had brought in volunteers and additional resources. Our first project was helping an elderly couple whose home had been damaged in an electrical fire similar to ours. With a team of volunteers, donated materials, and the couple working alongside us, we managed to rebuild their kitchen and bathroom in just 2 weeks, saving them thousands in contractor fees. The joy on their faces when they could return home was worth every struggle we had endured to get to this point. Amanda had received a promotion at her preschool to lead teacher, providing more stability for our finances. Max was back with us, happily adjusted to apartment living. Day by day, we were rebuilding our life, different, but in some ways richer than before. One evening, I received a text from Stephanie. I saw the article about your Phoenix project. It sounds amazing. I would like to learn more about it when you have time. It was the first contact from my family since the confrontation. Not an apology, but perhaps a tentative step toward the new relationship I had described. I showed Amanda the message. What do you think? Should I respond? I think, she said thoughtfully, that real change happens slowly. If she is genuinely interested, it could be a beginning. I composed a reply inviting Stephanie to visit our next project site if she wanted to see the work firsthand. Her response came quickly. I would like that. Thank you. It was a small opening, but a significant one. Not a return to the old dynamics, but the possibility of building something new, something authentic. As I reflected on the journey of the past months, I realized that losing our home had created space for growth that might never have happened otherwise. The fire had burned away not just our possessions, but also illusions about family and success that had limited me for years. In their place had grown a stronger sense of self, a clearer vision for meaningful work and connections with a community that defined family through actions rather than blood. The peace that came with authentic relationships, with being valued for who I was rather than what I could provide, was worth more than any house or possession could ever be. That night, as Amanda and I sat on our secondhand couch in our small apartment planning the next day's work on our fledgling nonprofit, I felt a contentment that had eluded me even in more materially comfortable times. Sometimes I told her, you have to lose everything to discover what really matters. She leaned against my shoulder, nodding in understanding. And sometimes, what you rebuild is stronger than what you lost. Have you ever experienced a moment when losing something valuable actually opened the door to something even more precious? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey of finding strength through adversity resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories of transformation. And if you know someone who might need to hear this message of hope after loss, share this video with them. Thank you for listening to my story today. And remember, sometimes our greatest growth comes from our most painful challenges.